Hello, everyone. Welcome to Broadband Deployment News. The state of California, the legislature there has submitted a bill to Governor Newsom's desk. I think it's sitting on his desk that would require the development of a broadband map that will allow citizens to submit self-reported data such as the broadband speeds that they're getting as well as what they're paying for their service. Be right back and we'll take a look at that. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Quorum with Broadband Deployment News. So I want to take a look at this bill. This was something that was actually, as we look at this, where was it? I was looking at the original date. So this is AB 286. So you see some of the more recent dates here, amended in Assembly April 11, 2023, but you see here enrolled September 18, 2023. It was, here it is, so introduced by Assembly Member Wood in January 24, 2023. So this is now sitting on Governor Newsom's desk because it's been through the Assembly, which would be their state representative body, and then the Senate. So it's been through that, it's been amended and whatnot, and sent to the governor for his signature. I have not seen, I checked news, I couldn't actually find the thing other than this, because when I looked for this AB 286, it was pulling up other things. But this is the Assembly Bill number 286, and it is called Broadband Infrastructure Mapping. So we'll take a quick look at this. So there's some things in here that those that are not real happy with the FCC map, I think would be happy with in this state map, and would prefer, I think, that the FCC map have some of these features. But this will be something that the state can do to try to get better broadband information. They still need to use the FCC broadband map as far as determining who has broadband service available to them, broadband serviceable locations. But they can use this map to drill down further into who really has broadband service, where they're getting broadband service, how much they're paying for that, and then also they want to make sure that people can submit a speed test. So I'll skip through some of the summary and we'll just look at at what's in here, the details. And I link to this in the video description if you want to check it out. It's just one page, pretty quick. So you see here. The Commission, in collaboration with relevant state agencies and stakeholders, shall maintain and update a statewide, publicly available, and interactive map showing the accessibility of broadband service in the state, including but not limited to information identifying the percentage of each census block that has broadband service meeting federal and state standards. The map shall identify for each address in the state each provider of broadband services that offers service at the address and the maximum speed of broadband services offered by each provider of broadband services at the address. So that right there sounds like the FCC broadband map, kind of a duplication of what that is, although they'll be using their own data, so it may not be exactly like the FCC map, but they go a little bit further in here in providing the ability for self-reported data, which is, I think, one of the criticisms that people have with the FCC broadband maps is that the claims of broadband service are strictly from the service providers. So they get to say how much the maximum advertised speed is. It doesn't say necessarily here where this data is coming from, this maximum speed of broadband services, but for the FCC broadband map, the internet service provider gets to state what the maximum services that they're making available, the type of technology. There are abilities to challenge that data on that map, but I think the big difference here is the ability for customers to upload their speed, what the speeds that they're getting through speed tests, as well as what they're paying for the service. So you see here, the map required shall also include the following features to receive self-reported data: a feature for users to disclose how much they pay for standalone or bundled broadband service. So that's kind of hard to, you're kind of comparing apples to oranges there when you're talking about a standalone or a bundled service. So somebody could have standalone broadband service, maybe they're paying $80 a month, and maybe it's a fiber service, gig fiber, and that's what they're saying they have. Somebody else could have a premium cable package, and they're getting, from their cable company, and maybe they have, maybe gig service, or let's say it's a half a gig by $250 or something like that, DOCSIS service, plus the cable, and they could be paying, $150 to $200 a month because you're throwing pay TV into there. So kind of hard to compare. But, if you live in a particular area, you can see, I guess, what your neighbors are subscribing to and paying, how much they're paying for specific packages. So you can maybe look around that way. And you could be looking for possible other providers. So you could see you're with one provider and you're paying so much for maybe broadband and TV, and somebody else has got a better deal, that kind of thing. Your neighbor's got another provider, and you can see how much they're paying. Assuming it's all self-reported correctly, that's always an issue, right? A feature for users to identify the internet service provider to which they subscribe for broadband service. So obviously they're going to say who they have service from and then how much they're paying. Feature for the user to disclose the maximum speed for broadband service to which they subscribe. So they're going to say who they get it from, what tier they're on, and then how much they're paying. Basically, those first three things. A feature that allows individuals to refute the broadband speed or technology or both that an internet service provider claims to offer at an address. So that customer can then say, well, I'm not getting this gig speed. And they can say, or it's not fiber. They could say, hey, I don't get fiber here. They say they provide fiber, but all I can get is fixed wireless, those kinds of challenges. A feature that allows individuals to identify barriers to broadband access. Not quite sure what that means. As far as a barrier to broadband access, maybe something where they can say, it could be something where maybe they're saying, we live up on a hill and can't get the service, or maybe, hey, we have a driveway that's almost a mile long, and the broadband provider wants to charge us $10,000 to get the service. So maybe it's those kinds of comments. The feature and self-reported data required shall be made publicly available and expressed at the address for which the data was submitted. The Commission shall obtain consent from an individual before publicly disclosing information that the individual submits pursuant to that subdivision there, not subdivision where they live, but those clauses. So right there, that could limit the amount of information, that self-reported data that's actually in here. And I guess that depends on whether the customer has to uncheck or check something. So if they have to check something that says it's okay if you report this publicly, some people might go, I don't know if I want to do that, or they might miss that. Or maybe the kind of thing where it's checked already and the customer can choose to not have that and uncheck it. So that would determine how many people or how much of that data actually gets publicly reported. I think if you're only reporting how much you're paying and what service you have, that kind of thing, maybe people will be willing to do that. The Commission may collect from providers of broadband services information necessary to establish and update the map required pursuant to this action. So that's where they're probably going to have to be getting data from broadband providers as to what service they offer, what type of service, and what their maximum speed is, advertised speed. And of course, all of that's already in the FCC map, so they could really, I'm assuming they could just pull that right in from the FCC map data, assuming that that's something that they can get access to. I know there have been questions about who owns that data. Does the United States government own that, or do people like CostQuest own that, where they have put together the fabric? I don't know, but I would think you'd want to start with the FCC data, which should be the most accurate at that point, because that's being updated regularly every 6 months, and then it's subject to challenges as well. So the Commission may collect information from providers of broadband services at the address level. So they don't necessarily have to. So again, they could go ahead and just pull in data from the FCC. The Commission shall not disclose residential subscriber information protected by some certain section there. The map required shall include a feature for users to submit a verified speed test at their location. It would be really nice if they could develop this where the end user could run the speed test right there through some kind of something in the map portal where they can just click run a speed test and it would do that. But it's not necessarily stating that that would be the case. Then it mentions here, the Commission shall not accept information collected by the Commission pursuant to subsections blah, blah, as evidence in a Commission proceeding unless the Commission validates the accuracy of the self-reported information. So to me, that's saying that, hey, if we have customers reporting that they're not getting the speeds that they say they're supposed to be getting, we can't bring that up in a Commission meeting and berate the provider until we actually verify that and validate the information. That's the kind of thing I think that it might be, is they need to verify that. And they might, when they're doing that, they might want to say, hey, did you realize that you guys are saying you provide this kind of service there and you don't? And maybe before that's made publicly, they're publicly berated. So Commission needs to verify that information. For purposes of this section, the following definitions apply, and broadband has the same meaning as defined in section 5830. That's probably some other document. And it's probably something similar to 25 by 3 or better, I would think. It could be 100 by 20, but they may be following the information on the NOFO, let's say, for BEAD. And then verified speed test means a broadband speed performance test result that was measured and verified using a reputable application specified by the commission for that purpose. So again, if they don't, this is, to me is saying that the way they might do this is they might say, well, if you use something like Ookla or MLab, some kind of speed test that we're comfortable with, then that would be considered verified. So they may link off people to one of those two tests, or again, it'd be really nice if they integrated something. And they need to probably provide advice for the person running the speed test that says, make sure, it's best to do this if you're not on your Wi-Fi network, or as close to your Wi-Fi router as possible if you are. Make sure that you're getting good in-home performance so that you're not underreporting what your broadband connection is because of your home network, those kinds of things. Anyway, this is, again, the kind of thing that that they are, I was going to bring up the chat here, kind of thing that folks that are really interested in broadband mapping would be more self-reported data from end users that could verify some of the information that's being input by internet service providers. We got a comment here from Vamonos. South of the Bay Area is super congested for Verizon and T-Mobile. Barriers to broadband access also should include lack of true 5G infrastructure. These carriers cannot provide basic home internet connection. Several large towns don't have even LTE home internet. That's interesting, and that is an issue where you can have some of these larger providers that are claiming 5G, T-Mobile saying nationwide 5G. And in my area, for example, I think I can still get it here. The last time I looked, I can get it, but it does warn you that it's limited. So get it while you can. So they can hit a certain point where they don't have enough spectrum to be able to provide that service. That may be what you're talking about there. Several large towns don't even have LTE home internet. So yeah, mobile internet is going to vary nationwide, as is wired internet. It's just something we have to be aware of. It's based on spectrum, who the operators are. Most addresses need real 5G towers and proper backhaul for any of the top 3 carriers to offer any sort of home internet connection. I found it probably the hard way. And I know a few people, I've got some anecdotal evidence here, folks that dropped the cable provider and went to T-Mobile. And while it worked okay, it wasn't quite as rock solid as they liked. And they did, because they were using it for work. And it was not quite good enough, so they did switch back. So that's just something to be aware of, depending on how important it is what you do on the internet. And it may not be quite the same when you're talking about 5G, because again, it's dependent on spectrum, and you're talking about wireless services. If it's if it's a mid-band spectrum, you can get fairly decent speeds, and you get the attenuation is not as bad as, let's say, millimeter wave. If you got millimeter wave, you can get pretty high speeds, but it's hard to get into your house. You got to can't go through walls, so you got to get set up to get that signal into your house. And you can't have any kind of interference outside. You can't. It's got to be basically line of sight from the various small cells to the antenna on your house and then into your house. And things like rain can affect it. Humidity in the air can attenuate a millimeter wave signal. It's fast, but very easy to attenuate. So those are some things to keep in mind. So thanks for your comments there. That's interesting to know. And that's true. If you've got an area that doesn't have good wired broadband, then sometimes fixed wireless is your best bet. And you've got a few options there. You've got your main carriers that are doing 5G, let's say through, they're doing a fixed 5G service. They're normally mobile providers, but they're setting up with home internet, like a T-Mobile or a Verizon or AT&T, I think, is doing some of that. Then you've got just fixed wireless providers that's kind of the business that they're in. They're not really doing mobile, but they set up fixed wireless infrastructure, and they could be doing 5G from the standpoint of they can have something like CBRS spectrum that they use, or maybe get some licensed C-band spectrum and some other spectrum that can do fairly good speeds. And that's going to be a little bit different than, let's say, the mobile providers doing this. So interesting what California is doing here. Each state has been looking at doing their own broadband maps, and a lot of that has been in preparation for figuring out who has broadband, where is really unserved in our area or underserved, and then comparing that with the FCC maps. They were doing that in the first part of the process to try to make sure that they could challenge, if they were on top of things, that they could challenge areas that the FCC said should have broadband, that really weren't supposed to have broadband, or areas that the FCC didn't have on the map that should have broadband. They were challenging that stuff. Now they're trying to figure out, they're still trying to figure that out, because the FCC says there's a location that's not broadband serviceable. It's not a broadband serviceable location, but it is. Maybe it's new and it wasn't before, or maybe it was something that they just missed, that CostQuest missed on their map. The state still needs to provide that service there, so they still need to have their maps in place to be able to figure out who really needs service, who doesn't have it, and any challenges that they can make as far as speeds, those kinds of things that are going to be made from other internet service providers or the consumers in the area. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks, Vamonos, for the comments. Appreciate that. Appreciate your watching. So if this was helpful, if you like this, give me a like on the video. I'd appreciate it. If you are not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button where you see it on the YouTube video itself or down below YouTube, and just click the bell to be notified when I'm live. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye-bye.